And then I welcome the panel, so all the speakers can come up. But I also think, reflecting on the European Partnership for Personalized Medicine, I think we recognize quite a lot of the sort of key areas that need to come together in order for this to sort of reach the full potential. And we just want to inform that there is an upcoming call that will open. The EP PerMed will have several calls opening actually at the end of this year. So you need to keep an eye on that. And regarding clinical studies, I also wanted to mention there is a partnership called ERA for Health, where actually Sweden is not participating at the moment through a funder, but they're aiming to support investigator-driven clinical trials. Because, of course, it seems like a very good area for Europe to come together, because it's costly, it takes time. So I just wanted to mention that. So I'm going to start with a question, and then I hope that you all raise your questions, and then perhaps also from the digital room we have some questions. And you've heard precision medicine several times, and I remembered maybe I need to say, so if you look at the definition of precision medicine in the life science strategy, and you compare it to the definition that Päivi presented on personalized medicine, they're very similar. And so we just have to accept that we use different names for similar things. And there can be some variety here and there. But I just wanted for our European audience to just clarify that. Okay, so I will start with a general question that I will ask all of you. And now I've also asked Anna Widell from yesterday to come up. So we've heard that we want to integrate research, innovation, and healthcare. But then, again, the how. And we heard from you, Anna, yesterday that, of course, when you come into the reality of a clinical setting in a hospital with the organizational, there's structures in place. So I would like to ask all of you, sort of, what would you suggest would be one central component to make this work? And I invite Anna to start here.
Okay, so that's the million-dollar question, I think. It's not one thing. I will not give you one thing that will fix everything. But I think there are many different things. But I mean, the greatest barrier is to really get into healthcare with all the things we can do. And I think we need to understand that we have to lift in parts of healthcare into the ecosystem. So we have to do something drastic. And then it's not like, I mean, it's hard, since we also have to see that healthcare is so many different things. It's everything from primary to subspecialized to specialized. And what we have now, which is the national highly specialized, which is still regional, we need another layer, which has to be new prerequisites. And it's not just transforming what we have into being state medicine. It's doing something new. So a new type of clinical medicine, and then you should define where to start, because we would need it all through the system. We would need to be data-driven also in primary care, but we can't get everything at the same time. I think one risk is that people want too much too soon. So starting step by step and starting with the new thing we need, which we are already doing, but we're doing against the system. And then define where should we start? Well, the parts of clinical medicine that need the specialized infrastructure inside IFAB, for example, that we can't do it without the expertise and the infrastructure in academia. So it has to be the same governance as academia. And also the advanced infrastructure for the trials you mentioned, Frida, they'd have to be national, because it's not like in the old time you give tablets and then you wait 5 years. It's a totally different way of doing clinical trials. And also the data, you can't just do all these things with data outside of healthcare, because you need to do it right from start in the clinical acute scenario. So you need to define parts of healthcare that need to have another status. and then support the rest of the system. It's not, we're not removing the regions. We have to make the regions understand that we're supporting the regions, because it's a new type of medicine that will support the whole chain. And then, as you said, develop the biomarkers so we can also do benefit in the primary care, but this is something new. So make a new type of clinical medicine that is academic, that has state governance, but is performed very much, because we need the medical profession in here. We can't do it without them. So that would be, it's not one thing. Maybe it is one thing, in fact. That's what we need. That's what
Before I let Janne, and we were visiting the imaging centers yesterday, and I think in one of the centers we really got the feeling, that clinical care and research were right there. They sort of were in the room together. It was pretty fascinating, I think. Janne.
Right, so I pick up where Anna ended this. I think that we have very developed ecosystem for academic healthcare industry collaboration on developing new drugs. We have, and you can develop also new drugs in a very extensive way without even going close to a patient. And then we have a very systematic way of doing clinical trials. And that's great. We have a great toolkit of new targeted drugs in many areas, but we don't know how to match those drugs with the patients. So what I think that we would need to work is to develop an European biomarker ecosystem where we actually work on a broad profiling, broad multimolar profiling in a pre-competitive space, where we actually generate lots of diagnostics data that is beneficial for research, assay development, also for industry to understand how is the molecular and features of the patient populations. And that would really put Europe in a forefront of precision medicine or personalized medicine. We don't really put at all enough investments in this developing the biomarker ecosystem.
I can only echo your answers so far, and I fully agree with both Anna and Janne on this. I would also like to lift the clinical trial as an absolute requisite to reach the biomarker and the treatment matching. However, in the meantime, before everything is in place, we can do a lot of pragmatic work, which is already being done locally and regionally. It's about building the trust, about learning different ways of working together, and that can be started today. So that's a very pragmatic approach. But we do need the new type of healthcare, and we need the really big profile biomarker platforms as well.
But just a quick follow-up to that, Päivi. So you're saying we can do it today, tomorrow. Is there some, how do you say, obstacle there that you would like to remove right away? I mean, why aren't we doing it if we know that this is...
We work in project silos, so mindsets, the culture of our projects is that, I mean, there's so many things that are common, in, for instance, between ATMP and what we do in, let's say, cancer precision medicine. But often we of course need to report on our projects in a specific way, but to kind of lift our eye, this project is for the bigger picture, and be courageous in taking that step, and asking also of our co-workers to take that step to really utilize the great projects that we already have towards a bigger picture.
Yeah, I can only agree with what everybody has said. And I think, as you said, Päivi, the clinical trials will be essential both to drive the development and also the implementation of new medicines. But we do have a challenge in terms of that we have, we work very close together when we talk about development of the new drugs and identifying new targets and so on. But we do have a difficulty try then when we're going to actual implementation of new medicine into healthcare, and we are those organs are not here and actors are not here today, and I think that is something that we really need to sort of build closer together, because we put a lot of investments into research and innovation and development of new drugs, but we also then need more efficient processes and being able to do early access for patients to new medicines. And we have quite of a challenge in Sweden, at least, to make sure that all these investment actually give benefit to the patient, that we give patient access to the medicine. Because otherwise, all the investment in terms of new diagnostics, being able to profile, that will sort of not really take it all the way. So we need to build those much closer together, and I think we are on a good way. I think the healthcare initiative is really key to that, but we also need to do that together with the governmental agencies, and so to make sure that we have a clear roadmap for also implementation of new medicines in the precision medicine.
And I think for us in EP PerMed, this is something that comes up several times, and that's why we have this circular logo where you sort of need to have all the pieces in place to get the wheel turning. So you actually give the patients, the latest information, the knowledge, and the treatment or preventive interventions.
Yeah, and we as an industry have a responsibility also to make sure that we can take part in that by really being courageous to try new reimbursement models, new innovative payment models, and I mean, it's easy to say that we would like to do that, but we also need to showcase that we actually can do that and make sure that we use all the different tools that we have.
Stina?
Yeah, so of course I fully agree with what you already said, but I think on collaboration, which was, I think, the question. Am I right? Yeah. So the collaboration, I think the healthcare has a role when it comes to collaboration, of course, to be a little bit more open, perhaps. We often hear that it's very complicated to get in contact with people within the healthcare, and I think we need to understand how we can do that in a more efficient way, and how to be a little bit more open. But when it comes to ATMP, I think we have sort of a model. We have strong collaboration with the industry, and we also have the possibility that you, as a small and medium-sized company, can get in contact with an ATMP center just to understand how does this work, how can we get in contact, is it possible to get in contact with some clinicians and experts in the field, just to make sure that we are on the right track, that these patients actually are in the healthcare, and that we can find them and maybe get them into a clinical trial when that's the time for that. So I think we have many good examples in our field of collaboration on different levels within research and the healthcare and the production and implementation. And we have dialogues together with the industry and the ATMP centers, trying to also communicate what we actually need in the healthcare from the companies, because we can see that the increased amounts of, for example, CAR-T products being introduced in the healthcare, this is not the Swedish sort of problem or challenge. It's like a global challenge. All these different products are expected to be handled in a specific way, and this is super complex for the hospitals to handle. If you have 2 products, fine. You have 4 people, you can handle that. But if you have 20 products and you have a lot of more patients, which we are actually expecting to have in a few years, maybe quite soon, this will be very difficult. So we also think that we have a responsibility to talk to the companies and describe these challenges for the hospital, so they can also prepare already at the clinical trial. Because when you already gone through all this and you have your approval, it's very difficult to change that. So we think a good communication already early on or along the way is really important.
And I think this is really, really important, because that will be impossible, I would say, for any hospital to really handle the complexity of the different protocols. It's a very, very concrete thing that I think that the industry needs to talk about together, and with the EMA and so on, how we can streamline those processes when it's possible to do that. Because I think, as you said, Anna, the clinical trials as of today and treatment of patients as of today is quite different from many years ago. Then the companies sort of provided an easy way to, you give the patient a pill and they go home, and then sort of they are out of healthcare for a while and then they come back. As of today, the collaboration between industry and healthcare in providing these kind of treatment, it's much more demanding. The resources that it takes from healthcare is quite big.
Yeah.
And we need to find also the way to collaborate around that.
Standardize
Yes.
parts. Yeah.
Even though that maybe then when the patient leave from CAR T treatment, hopefully you never see them again.
Exactly.
So that's really good. But I mean, it's a lot of investments in the treatment for a long-term effect, and we need to find the new models to collaborate around that.
Thank you. I want to open the floor, and I think one thing we will take with us is to go for the how, also on how to collaborate with industry moving forward in the partnership to exemplify how. Is there a question?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Right. Yeah, so it's a question from the chat. So what about impact evaluation of precision medicine research and actions? So are there any such assessments being made? And if so, how are the results fed back into research priorities?
Janne?
No, go ahead.
I think that's an excellent question. That is excellent question, and I think that the really interesting thing, if you start looking at the impact, for example, in a cancer precision medicine by genomics, it's starting to make difference in overall survival. It makes difference in less toxicity and so on. But I mean, it's much less than we would expect. But the impact evaluation is difficult because it's evaluating often the cutting edge things that are implemented in a very sick patient populations where expectancy of results is quite low. And then we don't really evaluate the long-term impact of lots of the things that have disseminated into the routine use. So I think that we need much better impact measurements. Also, the other thing that I think that needs much improvement is to evaluate the impact of health economy and benefits of biomarkers and precision medicine. Not only on sort of, I mean, our models are wrong for that because for example, we've coupled one biomarker to one treatment and one indication. But the whole precision medicine and personalized medicine has started to do broad profiling that can give lots of effects on precision health, precision medicine, and so on. And now we are calculating the biomarker use and effect in a wrong way. So I think that we need more assessment there.
If I may continue on that comment, I mean, if you consider the image that Anna showed with all the arrows going into precision medicine, we should look at the impact in all of those arrows.
But Anna, I think you talked about yesterday in your work with newborns. Then, of course, you can see.
Yeah, that's one very specific scenario that highlights a lot of these things. And there we can really see a lot of impact. But I agree, we need to measure it in new ways. And we also need to measure outcomes in a much more precise way and long term, not just up to approval of a treatment, for example, but really, and find models for that. And then, but the newborn screening is one way of doing it, because there you really, but it's of course a very small area of medicine, but it can really pave the way. And we can really show a lot of cost savings there, of course, many times the whole budget that we have, hundreds of millions for each year, for example. And then we can, but if we could do that on a national scale and really use the outcomes and then work with industry to use it, as we have discussed, has a structured way of implementing new treatments early on. That would be a way to do it for those types of diseases.
I also think that we need to empower the patients and the patient organizations on that, because I mean that's really why we are doing this, and I think much of the outcomes and the impact is also improved quality of life and things like that.
Thank you. That's actually a very good segue to what I was going to ask, and maybe starting with Christina. You've mentioned in passing that you've had mixed success maybe in involving patients, organizations from your slides, even though it's always nice to put patients at the center of all these graphs. So I would be curious from your experience, what would be the roadblocks or what could be done actually for national, international organizations maybe to facilitate that? And I really like the linked when we were talking about impacts, because we've heard a lot about industry and developing new medicine and everything, but really starting from the needs from the patients and what would be actually, so hearing more from them and including them as partners eventually, and not only being involved, engaged, but partner in all this development process to make sure that in the end there's the highest impact. So maybe just how to best do that from your perspective here in Sweden.
Yeah, thank you. Really good that we get some time to talk about this, because it's really important. And we can see now with the projects, national projects that are ending, which would have been probably really good projects to involve patients within. That wasn't the scope when that was sort of designed. And I think maybe it was also because it was very early on in the development of ATMPs. We didn't have any products in the Swedish healthcare at that moment. But now when we have this new initiative of the national coordination of ATMP issues or challenges in Sweden, it will be very important to have organizations joining that, from the patient organizations, of course. And we have approached a few, asking them to be part of this coordination group. But what we have found is that since we don't have any funding for this initiative, or have some funding, but that's not a lot. And we who are also involved in that have our positions at the healthcare or academia or in the industry. So we are paid by our employees to take part and to put some time into this. We see that we don't really have the funding to support the time that the patient organization representatives would put into the project. So this is something that we need to, as you were also saying, sort of introduce or have in mind already early on when we have the application. So now we are asking for a prolongation of this starting funding that we have for this initiative. We have included payment for that. So I think this is also, and I think this is actually the same for the hospital employees. Not the same, but we have similar issues taking part in all these different initiatives. And this would also probably be a really good way of securing that patients and healthcare personnel can be actively involved in the innovation, being supported with this within the projects fully. Because we have our other obligations, we need to be involved in so many different things, and the healthcare is really pressed, and probably the patient representatives are also doing this on their in the evenings, and they have to travel sometimes. So I think that would be a good way of maybe starting this. But I agree, it's really important.
Okay, Janne, and then I'll...
Yeah, can I raise 2 points on that? I think that we also need to understand with the personalized medicine that the research and the medicine is getting intermingled much more. So that means also that the patient representatives needs to meet researchers much more than we do today. I mean, we need to bring patient representatives to SciLife Lab and understand that process, not only for the patient's sake, but also for the scientist's sake. That's also a very, very good way to retain talent in the research when they actually meet the people that their work is going to help in the future. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that we need to be much, much better with the new digital tools and new data-driven life science that is developing to develop citizen science projects. We need to not only involve few patient representatives, we need to involve everybody. We need to draw the masses in discussions on this development with us.
Thank you very much. Alexandru Costescu, my name. I'm policy officer in DG Research in the European Commission in the Health Directorate, and I'm also a policy officer for two of the partnership. One is the partnership on personalized medicine. The other one is on transforming healthcare systems. So not necessarily to ask questions, but just to participate to the discussions, because some of the issues that have been raised, they touch on European level. So I hope that you also have realized that the European Commission has tried to adapt its funding scheme and its support to the community, to the advancement of the science. So in the past, we have been supportive for more than 10 years to the personalized medicine area and to the rare disease area, for instance, with projects, let's say, ranging between 2 and 10 million euros with the networks, the collaboration, and so on. Now we have moved to a new stage where we aim to achieve focus, scale, and long-term vision to give stability and certainty that this area will be pursued. So with those partnerships, several, let's say, priority areas have been mentioned, like the transforming healthcare systems, like personalized medicine, like brain health, like clinical trials with ERA for Health partnership, and so on. So with this partnership, we achieve, let's say, a better focus. We focus on this area for a longer period. We also achieve scale because it's a leverage effect. The Commission only participates with some 100 million euros, and the rest comes from the member states, which become actively involved and interested in the collaboration, the success of the area. And I think this approach is aligned with the speed of the science in these current times. And we hope that it will prove successful. And especially, we also aim to build synergies among this partnership, because I can see that almost everywhere it's a discussion about ecosystems. And here I can have some comments, but I will leave them to the end. What I would like to mention also is that, speaking of medicine, it's important to deliver not necessarily a number of medicines, because some medicines today are just variation of the same molecules. They are put on the market, but they don't bring real value to the patient. And this is why it's important to have the opinion of the patient, what sort of treatment they want. So it's important for us to make sure that we deliver innovative and effective treatments, and also that those treatments stay in Europe. So I also consider to work to provide an ecosystem, a framework that is more favorable to companies to stay produced and market in Europe, not for the invention to be taken and market in the United States and so on. So this is one aspect. And because the legislation has been mentioned, we are in a not very favorable situation that the pharma legislation has been postponed. So because of the large efforts necessary to revamp the entire package of legislation, you probably know that both the orphan drug legislation regulation from 2000 and the pediatric regulation from 2007 have been absorbed in the new pharma legislation. So it was a complex effort. It was done at a certain moment, but not sufficient for it to be discussed, approved by both the Parliament and the Council. So we are going to start again negotiations with the new Parliament and the new Council. What I want to say is that on our side in DG Research, we realized that the new medicines in personalized medicine, for instance, need special situations, special conditions. So you may have a combination of medicines plus biomarkers panels, or with diagnostic devices, and this need to be assessed into an appropriate legislative framework. So we have asked our colleagues in DG Sante, and they have been very receptive. And in our proposal for the legislation, there was a section, I don't remember exactly the number of articles, on regulatory sandboxes, which foresee the provision of such sandboxes where advanced treatments can be studied under special conditions and approved quicker and in a better situation. But this is subject to approval by the new Parliament and Council. Yes, and for the ecosystems, what I have learned from the other partnership is that many such successful ecosystems exist, and especially at local level in communities somewhere between 100 inhabitants to, let's say, less than 1 million. And they start grassroots with a lot of enthusiasm and participation from citizens, from carers, so health carers, not necessarily professional, not necessarily hospitals, various associations, from local, let's say, insurers, local administration. So what are ingredient sources in this success are trust, and which cannot be quantified, are trust and connections. So this ecosystem starts successfully from grassroots, but when they become bigger and when the large administrations realize them, they want to somehow take control and scale them up, but it's not easy because at the larger level, when you manage larger amount of money, you need to put inside more control and to quantify. And when they come and ask, as somebody has said, 300 KPIs, key performance indicators, then those people who do free work, they say, forget about, we don't need. So somewhere we need to meet in the middle where we keep the enthusiasm and the free work and the free resources that are being put by the various stakeholders at local level with the need of control and, let's say, quantification from the higher administration. So it's work to be done, but it's important to start and to manage to build trust and good connections among those various actors. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, because I think you mentioned many important areas and insights. And the thing is, I need to end this discussion, but because we need to leave the room, we can still be outside having coffee. So that means that the discussion can continue outside of the room. But one thing I thought you said is also that you need the balance. You know, the grassroots need to have the energy, and we work on missions, and the European Commission work in a way that it's a mission-driven. And from my perspective, at least, that was one way of suggesting a tool where you could collaboratively work together towards a common goal without sort of putting a wet blanket over, with 10,000 KPIs, but sort of having different stakeholders on the table together with their energy moving forward. So I think we just need to work on finding those ways of working so that we can move forward. And then we can call it many different things. But yeah, we'll end with that, and the discussion continues. And big thank you for my colleagues in EP PerMed and my Swedish colleagues, and the hosts, the co-hosts at Karolinska University Hospital, here at SciLife Lab, GMS, and now I probably forgot someone, but yeah, and thank you, digital viewers.